So when you're logging in for the first time, you will either be, if you've come direct to Intellischool and you're not going through your learning management system, you will be putting intellischool.app into your browser address. And then from there, you will log in. If you are with Simon, you will go in through your Simon account. And here is a little screenshot. And I put a screenshot up here for everybody because with Simon, what I'm told, and I get lots of nods of agreement with this one, they have had a bit of a change this year. So if you're going into your Simon, you can't find anything, that's why. So you go into this page here. So this is your landing page and then onto school. And then you should see this little tab that says Intellischool. With Schoolbox, I don't have an up-to-date one to show you, but I am told, and I believe, and unfortunately I don't have access to Schoolbox, is that you go to your courses, then the Intellischool tile in the top right-hand corner. Now, if that doesn't make sense to you, please reach out to me or to your Schoolbox people to see where it is. I have had some instances where that tile hasn't been in existence for certain people for some reason, so I'm not, again, that's a Schoolbox thing that we would get to, but that's basically how you log in. Now, I've had a few questions just over the last few days of people who are new, so I've probably got some people that are new to Intellischool and maybe even to Simon. And when you click into Simon for the first time, if you have been set up by your school, so that means you have your email address and you can normally click into Simon, when you click into Intellischool for that time, that's when it will create the account for you in Intellischool. So don't panic if you can't see it straight away. Make sure you click on that and that should create it. So that has been a problem that I've seen already just from the first couple of days. So we don't want to spend too much time on our logging in. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. So for me, when I first looked at Intellischool, I had a little bit of a shudder and I thought, even though I did do a major in psychology and statistics, I thought, wow, it's been a really long time. And since I had a really good look at graphs and statistics and whether something was relevant or whether it was deemed to be something that was of concern or statistically significant. So I thought we'd just run over a few simple things of the types of graph that we use. So the ones on this page, I think you will all agree, are things that you're pretty familiar with and probably don't have too much trouble with working out what's going on. But for us, we use these bar charts, or stacked bar charts in particular, we tend to call them. So you'll often see in certain places, so for example, this one that I'm hovering on over here, it looks like there's this in our attendance, and it will give you percentages. Now, another thing to remember in Intellischool is everything is clickable. So when we get into a platform, you can click on it and you can see the 50%, for example. The other bar chart, you'll see the same sort of stacked look here, but it is on, just tipped on the side basically. So I think we're all pretty comfortable with that, hopefully. Just looks a little bit different to some because it's stacked. This one, of course, I'm sure you all know is our lovely line graph, and that's about getting those one variable compared to the other. So that should be, I'm sure, very familiar to all of you. This is where I've had a few people say, you know what, I look at this and I know I should be able to know how it works, but I get a little confused. And these two ones are examples of a box plot, or box and whiskers, I think I've heard it called, a number of different things. And it's referring to this section here and to this section here. And the main thing to remember when you're looking at Intellischool and when you see these, so for example, you can see that we're looking at ACER and NAPLAN here. When you see this, the thing to remember is the box or the square itself is where you will have the majority of your students sitting. So let's keep it that we're talking about students. So it's basically 50% of students in this box. So in this example, on this particular student that we're looking at, it means that these little lines here means he's actually sitting above that. And this one, you can see the red below. So a main, now 50% of the students are here, and from here to here represents everybody. In this one up here, you can say, oh, well, okay, here's my box plot again, and here are my whiskers, but I actually have some out here. Now, in this sort of graph, it's very normal to have your outliers. And the outliers, when we're talking about ability in this one, is usually our students, unfortunately, that we have some who are struggling, and then we also have some that are quite exceptional. And they are our outliers. They are not the statistical norm. So they tend to sort of, if you like, ignore that, because if we're talking about students, these students are usually pretty easy to identify, and these students are pretty easy to identify. But where this is interesting for us is how big is this box, for example. So if you have a really small or short box here, it means you have lots of students all gathered in the one sort of achievement area. And that can bring up a lot of things like, does that mean that I've got lots of kids in my student that are all functioning at the same sort of ability level? Now, anybody who's been in a classroom, unless it's been streamed, knows that's pretty unlikely. Or sometimes it can be if you're looking at particular assessments or a particular way things have been going in a course, it might be perhaps I'm actually, or that task, that set of tasks, that achievement grades that we've used, maybe it's a little bit too simple. Maybe we've made it so that everybody is achieving, and that's great. We want everybody to achieve, but we also need to extend people in different areas. So your box plot can be quite useful as just that great little graphical representation to give you an idea of the spread, because a spread like this is a completely normal thing, of course. And then this one, which is called a Sankey diagram, is one that I get the most confusion from people about. And I would say that this is one that had me a bit miffed for a while, and I called it many things other than what it was supposed to be. Because sometimes when you open this up, say you were looking at a complete year level, there can be lots of these lines going from one place to another. But in essence, what it is good at showing is progression over time or changes over time. So you can see here we've got semester 1, 2025, and we've got semester 2, 2025. So it means in this area, this group of students has progressed from level B to level A. Now, in Intellischool, when you click all these different ones, if we were clicking this one, for example, we're seeing that we have some regression here. The other reason I particularly, now that I have understood how it's working and not been so afraid of seeing so many different lines going in all different directions, the other thing that I would say is it's really good for you to look at personalization and differentiation, but for a group, for example. So it might be that this one is representing maybe 3 students. And in Intellischool, when you're in the live product, you can actually click on it and see who those students are. So it might be a great thing for these students who are sort of moving and progressing in the same level and in the same way. They might have a certain need for a certain type of work, and alternatively, these students might need something different. So it's really good to be able to help with that identification of any special needs that any of your students might have, but also the groups of students that might be good to put in groups together or have specific work for. So in a nutshell, we've pretty much looked at all the different types of graphs, and they appear in different places within your Intellischool. So that brings us to the platform. So hopefully at this point, what's happened is you've logged in either through Simon, through Schoolbox, or through that native app at intellischool.app, and you have come to a dashboard that looks something like this. So for my Simon users, your dashboard will look like this. In the native app, it might look a little bit different, and you might have this settings as a cog over there. But on the whole, they will all look around the same, but don't be put off if you're in Schoolbox or Simon, and it will look a little bit different to perhaps if you're on a native app. What you will all see as teachers, and that's who it's directed to, teachers, is learners and cohorts. So they're exactly what they sound. Learners is your individuals. So when you have students, it's your student, go in there, find a particular student, have a look at all their different results. When we're looking at cohorts, we're looking at groups, exactly like it says. So depending on how your school is set up, you can have classes, subjects, year levels. Some schools have houses or campuses. And in this tab, you can click on those and have a look at each of those different cohorts. And of course, you would do that for different reasons. These other two tabs are ones that you may or may not see according to your position in the school. So for example, curriculum, this is moderation, and this one is staff task adherence. The majority of you are probably not going to see that, and you will only have that with those permissions and probably going along with a particular role. So as most of us in the group today are classroom teachers and subject teachers right at the coalface, we're going to concentrate on these as our basics. The other thing, as I said, remember settings will be in a different place, but if you're not seeing settings, that means you don't have that extra responsibility. I also just wanted to point out quickly that this is our knowledge base, and I think a lot of people come in and they click on here and they forget and don't realise that this little section is here. So this is where if you have any questions, you can click on it and we'll take you to articles. Now these articles, they're all written, they will have screenshots. If that's not your type of way to learn, we also have video tutorials and you can reach out to me at any point in time as well. So in our first one, we're going to jump in and have a look at just some screenshots to talk through, and then if we have time, we'll jump into the live platform. So let's say we're thinking about cohorts. So cohorts is where I can see trends, so it can be improvements or it can be a decline in something that's happened, and it's a really good place to have a look at what's happening in a group overall. And it might be that you're thinking, I want to look at attendance or academics. It could be any of those things. Also in the group today, I know I have some primary teachers and I also have some secondary teachers. And there are slight differences in the way things appear from one to the other. But in essence, I think you'll still, just by clicking, and I can't tell you or emphasize enough, you really just need to click and bounce around, click things, and that's the way to learn it. So this is a grade 4. So we're looking at a view that's in our primary school, but again, the things that I'm saying are very similar regardless of which one you're in. Top tip number 1 is always remember, in most of our screens, we will have some drop-down menus, and those drop-down menus, depending on what you're in, might allow you to select semesters or timeframes or classes or subjects or anything like that. So just remember they are there, because sometimes you'll click into something and you'll open up and you'll think, oh, there's nothing on the screen, and it might be that you haven't selected up here. When cohorts opens, when learners opens, it will open to what we call an indicators page. So over here for indicators, and then an indicators page will basically give you a summary of everything. So it's a good place to start. I've moved, in this case, straight onto my attendance tab, purely because we don't have a lot of time and we can't spend too much on each one. But your indicators page is that overview of everything. The attendance page here, so you can see that I'm in that because of the line there, is where I'm looking at the group. So this case, grade 4, overall, what has their attendance been? And you see I've got the stacked bar charts. So within Intellischool, when you're using this to check out your class, for example, you can click on these different ones and it will bring up underneath the names of the students that refers to. Now, I've blocked out the names there for a reason. I just wanted to use this particular data, but it's telling me that I have 50% at high risk at semester 1, and I still had a fairly high risk there. Now, it brings up the question, what do you class as high risk? What do you class as moderate? What do you class as low? That can be set by your school. In some cases, if you're from a school that's part of a plan, like the Diocese in Ballarat, they have actually set those for you. So you can find out what they exactly are, but generally it's somewhere about below, you know, some schools will set it at 95% for moderate, and above 95% is fantastic, but that's generally sort of those sort of levels is what it means. So in this case, we've got quite a few that we, according to this school's idea of attendance, that's a pretty high number. So this again is me looking at it and going, in a primary school, most of the time you're going to know whether your kids, you mainly have one teacher, whether they're there or not. In a high school, attendance is broken down into periods. So you can actually see more detail in what they're actually attending throughout the day, and you can drill down and see, for example, if you're suspicious that they are not attending a particular class. So say you think that student may not be enjoying or attending English, you can drill it down using drop-down menus like this to see if that's English where they're not turning up to school. It will also give you ideas when it comes to attendance, and when you get into the nitty-gritty of it, it will tell you whether it was an absence with permission or not, or it might be lateness to class. So there's a little bit of a difference in what you see from primary attendance to secondary, but that's all the same principle, and I think you'll find that pretty simple. The next one I particularly like for this time of the year when you are getting to know your students is the standardized testing tab. So this one, again, as I'm stressing, is for primary. So you will have standardized testing for secondary as well, and it will all depend on what your school has opted in to see. But in most cases, nearly every school I've looked at so far has NAPLAN. And then there are quite a few schools also have ACER, so your PAT scores and things like that. When you click on the standardized testing tab within a cohort, you are seeing overall for that group, and in this case for year 3 NAPLAN. So I'm looking at NAPLAN for year 3, but my class is year 4. This is me at the beginning of the year thinking, what is coming into my class in year 4? So I'm having a look at those results and seeing what's coming before, so getting prepared for that. And again, everything is clickable in the live one. So you click on the different places and you can see students. So if I wanted to see who are my middle ground here on numeracy, I can click on that. But I also need to change some tabs down here. And when you're looking at what you're doing in your class and whether you're coming up with groups of ability or project groups or whatever it might be, the other really cool thing about this is that when you click on these, it will bring up underneath your areas for improvement. So what this is representing here is that I have one student in a particular place where I'm clicking on, and this is where they're struggling for reading, or this is for grammar. Now, to make it all fit across with this, see these different tabs here? When you're clicking on or looking at the numeracy one, make sure you've clicked on this numeracy tab here. Reading and reading, of course. So I think you're probably getting my gist. Just make sure you're clicking on the right tabs to get these areas of improvement. So it really helps you to know this group of kids, and as I said, top tip, always scroll down. There's always things off screen. You will get a list of students that fall into that category, and then you will also know the areas of improvement that you need to work on for students in that category as well. So you'll have quite a few different things that you see in standardized testing. The thing to remember about that again is that with standardized testing, it's a point in time testing. This is a really cool graph that I love. And again, this is in primary and secondary, and one that you should definitely have a play around with. And it's called relative growth. So what it actually does is it looks at the ability of the student, and it looks about whether they're actually progressing. Are they improving or are they regressing? And when you open this one, sometimes you will see that there is that blank space again, and that is because we haven't clicked on our semesters here. So the thing I would point out quickly, and I need to keep moving for time, is that it will bring up straight away some improvement. So it's all about what we want to be able to do no matter what our students' ability. We want to tell them when they're doing them well and when they're improving. So this will give you our top improvements by rank. So you can have a look, and normally there would be a student's name there. But looking at this particular graph, and you can see that it's in quadrants. Basically, the way it goes is ability or performance, and then growth. So when you look at it, each little dot will represent a student, and when you click on it, it will tell you who that student is and bring up information for you again. And sometimes you'll see a dot that has number 3 or 5 or 10. That means that you've got 10 students in that one spot. But the thing to have a really good look at it with this one is look at my different quadrants. So this one, and luckily for this grade, there is nobody in the position, or no students sitting in the position of having the low rank and regressing. So students who are struggling and actually moving backwards rather than moving forwards in their learning journey. If I move above here, I have 3 students who are of lower ability, but they are improving. So that is all we can ask. We can only ask our students to do their best, and hopefully at the level they are, we see improvement. But from a teaching perspective, maybe this is something that you might want to look at is, what am I doing? What am I doing with these students? It's obviously working. It's a good thing. Maybe I need to do some more of that. I was looking at a graph today with a particular school, and they actually had a huge cohort of students sitting around here. So that was a good news story, even though we were sitting on this side of the line, but they were all progressing. And that led me to say to them, and for them to think about, what are we doing? We're actually doing something really good here. We're getting them moving forward. And hopefully next time we look at the graph, that group of students might be sitting over here. So in this one, high rank and improving, also great. And this one, that red flag, is high rank but regressing. So my students who have the ability but who are not going forward. And from pastoral care point of view, or for parents and teacher nights, this might be, if you had some dots in here, things where you get that question about why is that the case. So that was a quick run through the dashboards that are all for learners. So for cohorts, for learners, it's pretty much the same thing, except it's for an individual. You can click on students in cohorts and it will take you into learners. But if you know that you want to go straight into a student and see what's happening for them, you click on learners and you then go on and select their name. But what I've taken you through for cohorts is pretty much the same for learners, with that slight difference in sometimes representation between the secondary and the primary, and also some of the tabs. But on the whole, the main thing to remember when looking at your Intellischool is don't be afraid to click. Click on everything, choose a student, click on everything, and just see where it takes you and the insights that it can give you. So what's next for you? This is it. Practice, practice, practice. Like anything that you're using, any program they're using, if you know better than I that if you don't get on it, you're going to forget everything you've seen today. So make sure, and your homework is, so yes, I'm giving you homework. Your homework is to go and tonight, if you have the bandwidth and the energy, or at least tomorrow, go to your Intellischool and log in. Make sure you can log in. If there's reasons why you can't log in, get in touch with me or the people at your school, probably the people at your school first, whoever's in charge, and then you can come to me after that if there's a problem, and just give yourself at least 10 minutes to click around those things I've shown you now. Other things, I am your engagement manager, so my name's Kerry, and my job is purely to look after you and help you to use this particular program. We're also having another webinar where I promise you Google Meets and I will be much better friends than this time. And that is what's next. So you've seen how to log in, you've seen the basics. Let's just look in and drill into a little bit more on how to use cohorts and probably explore a few examples. You've also got those knowledge base articles. We have a YouTube channel that you can have a look at. And also your school might be having PD, or you might want to suggest to your school that perhaps PD for your faculty, for a group, for learning leaders might be a good thing for you as well. Yes. So if there is something that you need help with, and it is obviously maybe a technical issue and you need to get it fixed right now because you need to use it in 5-10 minutes, then I suggest you probably should reach straight out to help at Intellischool, purely because they're there all the time. I may be in meetings with other schools. Otherwise, if it's not urgent like that, you can come directly to me at kerry@intellischool.co and you will get the information that you need. So we've actually run out of time, but thank you for joining me. Apologies for our delay in starting. Hopefully that's giving you the confidence to click on and get going with your Intellischool journey. This is an amazing tool that you have access for, that your school is paying for. So they want you to use it, we want you to use it, but more importantly, the results or the information that you can glean from this to actually improve what you're doing in your classroom or what your programs are like, or if attendance is a problem, whatever it is you're trying to do, this information is really powerful for you to be proactive. So using the information so that you can use it to inform what you're doing in your class in the year to come, and hopefully use that to improve the outcomes for your students at the end of the day.